dwelling about the past. 'Cause I know that God is good, He led me to where I'm at. Sometimes I feel like giving up, you're giving in, but everything happens for a reason. It won't always be blue skies ahead. Sometimes you might need a helping hand, just like iron sharpens iron, making me stronger, calling me higher. When we come together, just like iron sharpens iron, making us stronger, calling us higher. When we're helping each other, we're growing together. It's so unnecessary worrying about life. I might not have it all, but I know I'll be alright. He's gonna challenge me to be the best I can be. turn the tide. Let the water go where it wants to go. You can run and hide. You can bury yourself beneath the stones. Somebody told me don't pretend, 'cause everyone could use a friend sometimes. Take some good advice. Don't let your fear decide. That's how you break inside. You don't need to worry. Somebody's waiting down the line to pick up the pieces. Hey, you'll be alright. I can feel the sun and how the wind makes way across the fields. Let me take a breath. Let me be a part of something real. Someone said it's better when you hold on to a helping hand. Sometimes we could all use a friend. Don't let your fear decide. That's how you break inside. You don't need to worry. Somebody's waiting down the line to pick up the pieces. Hey, you'll be alright. You'll be alright. Waiting down the line. So don't let your fear decide. That's how you break inside. You don't need to worry. Somebody's waiting down the line to pick up the pieces. Hey, you'll be alright. You'll be alright. There will be someone waiting down the line. You came in like a storm with no warning, swept me off my feet. It was a deadly dance, and I knew if I stayed, I would never leave. 'Cause you had my heart in your hands, soft like a summer, and then it was a deadly dance, and I knew if I stayed, I wouldn't stand a chance. Thunder, lightning hit me, struck me right in this heart of mine. I was bound to fall down into your wild winds. You picked me up and hit me right in this heart of mine. Thunder, lightning, thunder, lightning. Just like the bolt from the blue, you came right in, loved me to the bone.